Republicans right now have full control of government.
We all
House,
know
Senate,
that the
White
language
House.
of that benefited
There are no
Democrats
Republicans putting forward
what the
legislation.
title
Excuse
says.
me. Let me just finish what I'm just saying.
Brian Tyler Cohen went head-to-head with outspoken MAGA supporter Katie Pavlich in a heated debate. He joined Katie Pavlich's show to push back against Republicans over their attempts to change election rules and the continuing debate surrounding election integrity. The conversation quickly turned intense as both sides strongly defended their views. We're going to go through everything that happened, and I'll also share my own thoughts as we move along. So let's get straight into it.
That was Brian Tyler Cohen, progressive YouTuber. Brian, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. So can you just explain to me how Democrats who are just calling to change Virginia's map are selectively being outraged about the Supreme Court ruling?
This Supreme Court ruling is basically rolling back the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And I think the fact that you can see Democrats applaud what happened in Virginia does not negate the outrage, the virtuous outrage over what happened at the Supreme Court. When Democrats are applauding what happened in Virginia, it is in response to a cycle that was started off, that was sparked off by Donald Trump deciding that he was owed 5 seats, entitled to 5 seats in Texas, and yet no Republicans had any issue with that. They seem to just decide that if Donald Trump calls for 5 seats in Texas, that there should be no response from Democrats. In fact, I don't remember you saying anything about there being anything wrong with what was happening in Texas. So when Democrats are applauding action, a response in California, in Virginia, that is because Republicans decided to engage in this mid-cycle redistricting and push back against this entitlement that Trump felt in the aftermath of Texas.
Well, first of all, in Texas, the redistricting was legal under their system, and it's still proportional. Let me finish, Brian. It was still legal, and it's still proportional to the presidential election results far more than what we've seen by Democrats way before Texas ever decided to do something. The Voting Rights Act.
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. You don't get to say this is a better.
Brian, there's nothing in the Voting Rights Act that says you can draw districts based on race, which is exactly what Democrats have been doing in order to maintain political power in Washington. I want to go back to these maps because you say Texas started it. Well, New England, there are 0 seats for Republican representation on Capitol Hill, despite 40% of voters in New England voting for President Trump in the last presidential election. If you look at Virginia and the way that it was, 6-4, now it's going to be 10-1. They had to draw this weird lobster in the middle where you have all of Northern Virginia, which is very heavily white, by the way, disenfranchising voters down in Southern Virginia. There are districts now that voted 75% for Donald Trump. They're now going to be represented by Northern Virginia. They didn't vote for that. You also have Illinois, with 14 Democratic seats, 3 Republicans, when 30+% of Illinois voted for Donald Trump. So you tell me, looking at these maps, how that is a fair representation for Republican voters in states like Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, etc.
Right, and we can play the same game in South Carolina, in Alabama, in Louisiana, in Georgia, in Florida, in Texas. You conspicuously left all of those out, but that really raises the question here that because gerrymandering is happening everywhere, shouldn't Republicans support a nationwide ban on gerrymandering? And yet when that was put forward in 2020, yes.
The most gerrymandered seats in America are not from Republicans, as we just showed on the maps. Take a look at, wait, hold on. Let me respond to what you just said. First of all, take a look at Dan Crenshaw's previous district and then tell me that gerrymandering doesn't exist, in these Republican states. But second of all, every single Republican voted against the 2021 Freedom to Vote Act. Every single Democrat voted in favor of it. That would have banned partisan gerrymandering nationwide. Republicans right now have full control of government. We all
House,
know
Senate,
that the
White
language of
House.
that
There are no Republicans putting forward legislation.
Excuse
me. Let me just finish what I'm just saying. There's no legislation being put forward to ban gerrymandering nationwide. So you can, if you think it's such a scourge that you can point to New England and say that there are no Republican representatives, Republicans have the power right now to fix it, but they don't because they know that they benefit from it.
Democrats are the ones who've been doing this.
Democrats don't have control of government right now. Republicans do.
As I mentioned at the start of the video, I called Katie Pavlich a hardcore MAGA propagandist, and there's a good reason for that. First, she comes across as extremely hostile, but more importantly, she constantly pushes propaganda. This is the strategy she uses all the time. Her entire style is based on asking why Democrats are supposedly so terrible. Brian Tyler Cohen, why are Democrats so bad? Why are they so hateful? Why do they hate white people, hate apple pie, and hate the American flag? That's the same routine Katie Pavlich follows every single time. She doesn't bring Brian Tyler Cohen onto her show for a fair and honest discussion. She invites him so she can attack his views, criticize him, and try to make him look as bad as possible.
Do you support it nationwide?
I support the Supreme Court ruling because I don't believe in drawing congressional districts based on race because that's racist? Can Democrats win?
Because you want. Wait.
Brian, do you believe that Democrats can win?
You think it's racist to have representation?
The Supreme Court just desegregated
you
the
think
South.
having one
Democrats
district
in the South were
in South
segregating
Carolina.
the South by having race-based congressional districts, which the Supreme Court just ruled against. That's what just happened. Democrats
when they
apparently
crack
can't
these
win
districts,
elections unless they draw districts based on race. Whether they can't win elections because people are fleeing blue states for red states, and they can't win elections because in the census they are counting illegal aliens as part of congressional districts, which Democrats are opposed to taking out of that because they need them for congressional representation.
So when they crack these districts, and black voters in South Carolina,
they can still vote
Tennessee,
wherever they want. You just don't draw the lines based on race, which is racist.
You're being purposefully obtuse, and your viewers can see that because they know exactly what it means when you crack.
This is another one of Katie Pavlich's favorite tactics, the classic "I know you are, but what am I" type of response. She goes back to it all the time. I covered one of her appearances on Chris Cuomo's show just a few days ago, and she used the exact same approach there as well. I honestly wish Brian Tyler Cohen and some of the other people who debate Katie Pavlich would push back a little more. They usually take the high road, but part of me wishes someone would simply ask her, "Are you Pee Wee Herman?" Because that's exactly what this kind of argument sounds like.
From a jurisdiction where there are overwhelmingly black or brown voters, and now all of a sudden those districts are cracked into 3 other districts so that their voting power is diluted. This is exactly the impetus.
I know that George Wallace and Joe Biden were against desegregation and integration,
for the Voting Rights Act of 1965. This was exactly the impetus for the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
Brian Tyler Cohen, thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Like I always say whenever I cover her, Trump loves to use the phrase nasty woman, but in this case, Katie Pavlich really comes across that way. She always seems overly aggressive and unnecessarily rude. Brian Tyler Cohen was completely right when he said she was being deliberately obtuse because that's exactly how she behaves. That's straight out of the MAGA playbook. Instead of relying on strong facts, they interrupt, talk over the other person, and avoid answering simple questions directly. It's the same strategy they keep using again and again. I originally planned to start with Brian Tyler Cohen's response, but before we get to that, I wanted to show the opening part where Katie Pavlich introduces the segment and begins talking about propaganda. Take a look at this.
Also today, President Trump rallied in Las Vegas, or in the Villages, Florida, touting new tax deductions for seniors. He also made a pretty head-turning comment about Congressman Ilhan Omar that the crowd thought was pretty interesting.
I believe she married her brother, which is totally illegal. Although it's a lovely couple, actually, but it's a little bit on the illegal side. Darling, I love you very much. Good night, brother. Let's go to bed. Good night. Isn't she despicable? I can't stand watching her.
Immigration fraud is indeed illegal, and the president is making jokes about it.
Pretty classy, right? Katie Pavlich, who is often introduced as a journalist, and I use the title very loosely, opens the segment by bringing up a rumor Donald Trump has repeatedly promoted about Ilhan Omar being married to her brother. There has never been credible evidence to support that claim. Of course, Katie Pavlich doesn't make the accusation directly. Instead, she carefully keeps her wording vague, most likely to avoid any legal problems for News Nation. That alone tells you a lot about the kind of commentary she chooses to rely on. It's also worth remembering that this is airing on a channel with news in its name. Even though News Nation doesn't have the largest audience, plenty of people still watch these segments and believe they're getting fair and objective reporting, just as many viewers do with Fox News. It's really not surprising that Katie Pavlich made the move from Fox News to News Nation because this style of commentary matches the reputation she's built over the years. Now, what do you think about the debate over gerrymandering? Do you think Katie Pavlich is right when she argues that Democrats are the bigger problem, or do you agree with Brian Tyler Cohen that most Democrats would rather see gerrymandering end altogether while Republicans continue supporting it because they believe it gives them the strongest chance of winning elections? Let me know what you think in the comments about this debate between Brian Tyler Cohen and Katie Pavlich.